Adam, here's the thing that we have been talking about for a good chunk of the week because it has been the discourse online. And I, like a stupid idiot, didn't put all of it together. Like, it's been a conversation all week, but then this afternoon is when I realized, they're supposed to play head-to-head. The decision to take Jett Luchanko over Zeev Buium, you have a guy in Luchanko who isn't ready for this level yet. Ideally, they'd be able to send him to the A. They really don't want to send him back to Guelph. They're going to try to manage these 9 games, it seems. And he's been in the lineup the last few games. He's out of the lineup tonight. And people have had the conversation about, was it a mistake to take Luchanko over Zeev Buium? Luchanko, of course, just turned 19 in August. Buium is 19 now. He turns 20 in December. They're relatively close, about a year or so apart. Buium is already producing points, albeit mostly on the power play. He is a -7 on the season. I believe 3 of those came on empty net. Okay. Do you think that in the grand scheme of things, it matters that the Flyers aren't playing Luchanko in this first head-to-head matchup?
No, not at all. I think you're worried about your own guy and how he's doing and what he's supposed to be doing. And if you just want to look at Jett Luchanko, it feels like a bit of a broken record with what he needs to do. You know, I remember talking to his coach in Guelph before he even got drafted, and the word was, we need to get him to shoot the puck more. You go back and you talk to John Tortorella. What was the big thing he said about Jett Luchanko? We need him to shoot the puck more. Riley Armstrong, the director of player development, we need to get him to shoot the puck more. And what has Rick Tocchet said? We need him to shoot the puck more. Because when Jett Luchanko shoots the puck, he becomes a much more dangerous player because he does have a very nice shot. It's an accurate shot, but he is so hardwired to be a playmaker and to make that extra pass. He needs to almost, I think deprogram might be a little bit too harsh of a word, but he needs to change his mindset where the comparison I made is it's a different sport, but he's Ben Simmons at this point, right? Where
I said this the other day, kind of jokingly, but yeah.
He just, if anybody watched basketball when Ben Simmons played for the Sixers, he never shot the ball. And then, it really manifested itself in the playoffs that last year here for him. But I think he made himself a lesser player with amazing talent. I think Jett Luchanko has all the talent in the world to be a top-flight player in the NHL. But you cannot just be a pass-first guy. You need to round out your game. And he's got everything you want: the speed, the hockey IQ, the defensive ability.
The physical ability seems to be there. The strength is there. They raved about it a year ago.
Right. He has what you need to play in the NHL, and the shot is there. He just needs to get into a habit of using it. And I don't know how you sort of, I watched Major League the other night. Willie Mays Hayes in spring training. The manager says, every time you hit the ball in the air, I'm going to make you do 15 push-ups. I mean, I don't know if you have to go to that drastic with Jett Luchanko, but you need to say to him, I want to see 3 shot attempts a night. 3 shot attempts a night. I think what you then do is you diversify him as an offensive player, and you turn him into being a good player into being a threat. And when he becomes a threat, then you will see all the talent that made the Flyers say he's our guy in the first round of the draft a couple of years ago.
There was a time way back when that Brett Brown, I think it might have been the season where the meltdown happened against Atlanta in the playoffs, the passing from underneath the basket out to Tobias Harris. That was the season, I think, where Brett Brown actually did say he was going to install a plan where it was like minimum shot attempts per game, minimum 3-point attempts per week. Obviously, it didn't work. I guess my concern, and you watch a lot of the younger guys far more than I do. You evaluate these guys a whole lot more than I do. I can't think of a guy who reached the top flight, who reached that upper echelon, that didn't have a willingness to shoot even in junior. Like, to me, it's like if he's going to go back to Guelph, and we were talking about this the other night, cool, but send him down there and say, listen, dude, you got to shoot the hell out of the puck. I don't care about anything else that you do. You communicate it to Guelph's coaching staff, and you don't have the right to tell them what you want him to do. But there's kind of an implicit understanding. Like, look, the kid needs to work on his shot. That, to me, is the only way that he can really develop if you're going to send him down. Otherwise, I guess you maybe consider trying to elongate this stay up here at the NHL level with these 9 games and try to just have him work with his coaching staff, work with his teammates. But he needs live reps, and the shots have to come in live reps. Can you think of a guy that has been this reticent to shoot the puck at such a young age and then has ultimately flipped it and ended up becoming a scorer.
No, there's nobody I can think of really at any age where they've had that hesitation to pull the trigger. I mean, I think more often it goes the other way, where maybe they shoot it a little too much, and you want them to be a little bit more of a distributor. I think it's very rare to see it go the way that it's going with Luchanko. But to your point, I don't think you'd have to say much to people in Guelph about getting him to shoot more. It's, as I said, the coaching staff there is the same one that was there before he got drafted. And they've been harping on it with him as well, going back to his age 17 season. So, whatever has to be done to get through to him, we need you to shoot the puck more. It has to get done, because if he doesn't, you're going to leave money on the table, and he's not going to maximize the enormous amount of offensive talent that he has.
Everything you both have said is fantastically correct.
Yes.
Hey.
Everything, right? High fives over my head. There you go. And we won't know for at least 3 years whether or not this was the right call, or they should have taken Buium, whatever. We won't know for 3 years. But what I get perturbed by, and what bothers me, is everybody making out tonight's game should have been Jett versus Zeev. And, why isn't he playing versus Zeev? And if Zeev Buium has a big game, the Flyers are going to look awful. None of that is true. Absolutely none of it is true. That is fan fiction, is what that is.
Fan fiction.
Fan fiction is
Welcome
what that
to Fan
is.
Fiction with Anthony Sanfilippo.
3 years from now, I may agree with every one of you and say, it was a bad pick. And 3 years from now, we might be roasting Russ and say, see, Russ, you were wrong.
Yep.
Luchanko was the right pick. We don't know.
It's entirely possible.
We don't know. These kids are 19, 20 years old.
And I would love to be wrong. In fairness, I would love to be wrong, because I have been dead on, balls accurate about Cole Caulfield and Cam York to this point in their careers.
But again,
that is one that on draft night, and at the time said that to me.
But you got to remember again, and I'll repeat it a third time, fourth time, fifth time for you. The reason that they did that is they had a high second round pick that year, and said, we feel like there's other forwards who can score in this league, who we could get in the second round of this draft. We don't feel like the defenseman is there. So they went with York first and Bobby Brink second. And they felt at the time that the two of them combined would be better than just one Cole Caulfield. That was their thought process. Whether that's the case or not, that's up for debate. But that was at least the thought process behind it.
On a positive note, Bobby Brink's a good player.
And he might get better and better.
It seems like he has a path to.
Right, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Adam, I would say that Brink right now is better than expected.
For sure. I mean, a smaller player, you get him in the second round. You're not sure what he's going to give you as far as from a physical standpoint. Will he hold up over 82 games? And similar to discussions that were held about Cole Caulfield. Yeah. But he has become a key element on the Flyers' best line for more than a calendar year now. So, that line, a lot of the attention goes to Cates and a lot of the attention goes to Forrester, but Bobby Brink has equal leverage on that line as far as what that group is trying to do. And you see him as he's gotten bigger and physically more developed and a little stronger, he's gotten more confident in his game, and he's able to take the puck to the places he needs to go to be productive.
And there are people commenting saying, look at our draft history with the Flyers. It's not good. It's laughable. It's ridiculous. And yet, there are 12 guys in this lineup who were Flyers draft picks. That's a good number.
How many?
It is.
12. 12 players in the lineup tonight are Philadelphia Flyers draft picks.
Which is a high number.
If you were going to try to compete for a cup, that doesn't mean that they're superstars. I mean, yes, obviously you haven't developed that superstar yet. You're hoping Mishkov is that. You got Martone coming, who could well be that, right? But to sit there and say that the Flyers have not drafted well is, I think, a little bit hyperbolic. I think that there are NHL players that they are drafting. Now, they may not be your superstar level players, but they're certainly drafting NHL quality players, and you need those players if you're going to ultimately be successful.
I think that's the concern, though. And, so if you go onto Russ Joy Island, where I was for a while about, you have to get better through the draft, because ultimately I think, especially given how things have worked out with the non-existent 2026 free agent class, if we're being fair, you kind of have to draft your elite talent. There aren't a lot of top-level cup winning players, like the missing piece that are going to teams in free agency. It might happen through a trade. Like Jack Eichel trade worked out pretty damn well for Vegas.
Yeah.
The Reinhart move worked out really well for Florida. So it doesn't mean that can't happen. But trades are very different to me than free agency. So I think, like, while you're correct that they do have a lot of homegrown guys, drafted guys to this team, you want to see them ultimately end up with at least one or two that are in that elite echelon.
And they may have them, and Mishkov and Martone. They have
could.
Them, right? So you got to give them time. Look, it's there's no doubt that the previous regimes didn't do well. And when Bob Clark said it on the Cam and Strick podcast a few years ago, that Ron Hextall set the team back 10 years, he wasn't lying. Right?
I think there's a bit of hyperbole there. Well, but no, when you have the number 2 pick and you look at what number 1, number 3, number 4, and number 5 in that draft have accomplished, it looks, monumentally worse. But
that wasn't the only bad pick.
No. Oh, no.
I mean, Herman Ruptsov was
correct. That was not
that mix, too.
Yeah, that was not a good selection. And look, I think so here's what I always say with drafting, and this is something that I kind of have harped on with people I talk to. You can draft the right players. There's nothing that says the Flyers drafted the quote-unquote wrong players. Look at the development of those players. It's a two-pronged assault. You can draft the best players out there. If you don't develop them afterwards with your development guys, that's why Riley Armstrong has such a pivotal role with this organization now. And look, I'm not going to, we all like Shel Samuelson and the job that he did, though, but you would see guys kind of get to a certain point and they wouldn't take that extra step. And I think some of that, it's all gonna wash down onto the general manager and the scouting director who made those decisions, because ultimately they're the ones who brought those players into the organization. But some of that blame does have to fall on the development group.
Yep.
And I think that's why you've seen so much emphasis put into bringing in Riley and retaining him, and bringing in Nick Schultz and making him, giving him the prominent role that he had before he went behind the bench in Lehigh, and Chris Stewart and Patrick Sharp and John LeClaire. And they brought in all these guys to really build out that development group to help these guys grow and progress. I think that's something, to me, you say whatever you want about the players they picked, but you have to wonder how much of were they put in position to succeed after they were drafted. Now, some of these guys are still not going to work out because, look, you have 7 picks. If you come out with 1 NHL player, if you come out with 2 NHL players, you've done spectacularly. You come out with 1, you've done pretty well. That's just the law of averages, how things work in the NHL. But if you can just keep that number at a consistent level, you're going to do very well for yourself. And I think they've done that now, again, as we've seen. Like, look, we don't know what Oliver Bonk's going to be, right? He has to get healthy and he has to play. But we think he's going to be a really good defenseman. We think Denver Barkey's got a chance to be a nice player. I think Jack Berglund, they took a couple years ago in the second round, I think he has a chance to be a very nice player. There are other guys progressing. Igor Zavragin, the goalie playing over in Russia.
Yep.
There's a chance he's going to be a really nice player for them. So you just need to give these guys a chance to develop before we just completely say, well, they're not players. And we'll bring it back to Jett Luchanko. Let's give him a chance to develop. He was the youngest player, I believe, in his draft class. He's 19, barely. Yeah. So let's not just write him off now after, 9 total NHL games the past 2 seasons? I saw him at the World Juniors. On a Canada team that was not very good, he was one of their best players. So when you log about guys in their age group and being able to stand out, he stood out on a team that is very difficult to stand out on. So once he gets it into the right mindset to shoot the puck, he'll be able to maximize those talents, and you will see why. And look, if the Flyers hadn't taken him in that spot, he was not going to be on the board a whole lot longer. It's not like they reached and took a guy who everybody had graded in the 5th round. He was a top 20 selection. I remember in my mock draft, I believe I had him at number 20. So it wasn't like they reached to grab a guy who nobody knew who he was. This is a very talented player. He just needs to kind of get in the right mindset, be developed, and he'll get to where he has to get to.
One other thing I want to bring up here, Adam, and I want you to I want to walk through it with you. Who's Zeev Buium's agent?
I know where you're going with this, but go ahead.
I've already heard something counter to this, but go ahead.
Go
Well,
ahead.
who's his agent?
I don't know the fellow's name, but I know it's the same agent Cutter Gauthier
Okay,
has.
so it's Cutter Gaudier's agent, right? How much did that play into a decision by the Flyers to not take him?
So I had those same questions coming out of that draft, and when I asked someone who is part of that decision-making process, they said some, but not much. When they assessed Zeev Buium, they looked at the size and the projection. They said they looked at Cam York, they looked at Jamie Drysdale. They said, well, we've got that same kind of player already. Why don't we take the center, which we desperately need? And that's why they made the decision they made to take Jett Luchanko. So,
And technically,
again,
they have a third defenseman
right.
like that in Emil Andre.
Right, and again,
Right? So he would have been the fourth.
right. So,
Although he might have been the most talented out of all of them. We'll find out over the next
well,
few
again,
years.
you can agree or disagree with that, but that's their mindset. They looked at Zeev. Now, I will say this: when I was doing my mock draft, I had Zeev Buium as the second defenseman off the board. I had him going at number 6. The fact that he was still there at number 12 was really surprising because I thought after Levchinov, I thought he was the second best defenseman available in that draft. So, again.
Well, so I mean, look, you talk to teams. Like, what do you get the sense as to why he fell?
I think they saw the ceiling. They saw the ceiling wasn't as high as some of these other guys. They saw an NHL-ready plug-and-play guy who probably could have played in the NHL full-time last season. He was that mature, physically, hockey IQ, had the game where he could have been a contributing player, probably similar to what he's doing now, a third-pair guy, where he could have done it last season. But when they looked at the Yakimchuks and the Dickinsons and the rest of the defensemen in that group, they saw higher ceilings if they got to where their talent says they should get to. So I think that was a common theme where the floor on Buium was higher, but the ceiling wasn't as high as some of the other guys. So again, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's sort of the common groupthink when it came to Zeev Buium. Now, again, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but that's, these guys do this for a living, so they know more than I certainly do. But when I watched Zeev, I saw a guy who had the look of being a number one defenseman, power play quarterback, a guy who could play in the league for a really long time. And we'll see if he gets there. But that doesn't mean that because he's gonna be, maybe that Jett Luchanko won't be ever after 9 games. You cannot, or 10 games, however many it is, you cannot make that determination yet. I think there's a lot more that we're going to see from Jett Luchanko.
Really quick on the agent point. I did a little bit of digging around this, believe it or not, about...
It's Kurt Overhart, by the way, in
Thank
case anybody
you.
was wondering.
It was about 6 or 7 months ago. I did a little bit of digging around. Talked to somebody who isn't in like the inner circle of Zeev Buium, but it's somebody who knows the kid, knows the character, and said regardless of agent, if he had been drafted by the Flyers or any other team, he would have upheld his end of the bargain. He would have ultimately reported. It would not have been Cutter 2.0. That's one person. That's one person's opinion. And that's not directly from the player, right? Like, I didn't sit down with Zeev Buium and say, hey, man, if the Flyers had drafted you, would you have showed up here? But it's interesting. It feels like that's going to be like one of those, and again, over the next however many years, I think the questions around the agent, the questions around whether or not that swayed the decision or not, is going to kind of be akin to, did the Flyers guarantee Cutter Gauthier a spot on the roster when the GM switched? Is that what ultimately did it? I think it's going to be like one of those similar things where you go, well, that might not have anything to do with the reason that the guy isn't here. But it'll be one of those things that's going to stick in a fan's mind, at least until they hopefully see the player that they ended up with being at or above the level of the player that isn't here.
So to me, the rule I always say is ask me in 5 years if they made the right choice. So we're not anywhere near that point yet with any of these guys, including Cutter Gauthier. We're not there yet. So ask me in 5 years if they made the right choice, if they made the right pick, and I'll be able to give you a better answer. Anybody who says they know now is lying to you or just completely jumping the rails.
A prisoner of the moment?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a nice way of saying it.
It would take one to know one.
Well,
A prisoner of the moment.
I'm just being honest.
that sounds like the name of your high school band.
Prisoner of the moment.